items to discuss, so let me do the roll call. Committee Member Tillman,
Present.
Committee Member Prespolinski, Chairman Fitzpatrick present. We have 2 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. So the only thing we had to discuss because we didn't have claims was the ordinance establishing deadlines for the preparation and submission of drafts of the proposed budget. So I know that we had got an email from Controller Hoffmaster asking a couple questions. So I know the one question that was, what were we expecting? I think that's how it was worded. What were we looking for about a July 6th date? So the July 6th date was a date that was drafted in ordinance. It wasn't a date that I, as an author, specifically requested, but it was probably close to the time frame that I expressed the desire to have to the attorney, and that's just the date we fell up with. But what we would be expecting by that date would be the drafted proposed budget that we would be reviewing and recommending to the council whether to approve it or not. Was that the question you were?
So you're expecting the mayor's budget on or before July 6th? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying
The
yes,
mayor's proposed budget for 2022.
Yes, even if it's the outline, because I know that some departments are larger and they may take a little longer, or I know that you guys I got your table of what reconciliations and things need to happen in by certain times, but I still don't think that with as much data as we have from previous years, it doesn't seem impossible to go by the previous months by department to assess what their expected expenditures would be going forward. And if there's a desire to wait for other things to come in to call it final, I completely understand that, but I don't like being under the gun, which is what we've been the last couple of years, waiting until, it's almost time to submit everything before we start looking at it, and we always get rushed through the process. The main attempt is to prevent that from happening going forward. Councilman Tillman.
And since this has been an open dialogue from some time now, I made a couple phone calls and was looking to see, is it just the set deadlines, or can we not request this in a more timely fashion, as Mr. Fitzpatrick addressed prior to July 6th? And I know that I reached out to Mr. Otwood, DLGF, and even though this is not their field or to comment, in other words, but to give some guidance as far as if there was a designated start time on assembling the budget, or in other words, pre-prepping before of giving an estimate of what the other departments are preparing. And from his experience or past experience, there isn't a set time other than we have the deadlines, as long as we meet all the deadlines that's required by the state.
Okay, sweetheart, go ask Grandpa if he could put one on for you.
And so from that, he indicated that he did not believe that he could provide with the guidance that I was seeking, but the DLGF does not get involved with the daily inner working of the local government. He did say that he did not believe that there are designated start times on assembling the budget, as I just stated. So I don't see why that will pose an issue for a request to have it by July 6th. And then that there's other cities in the state of Indiana that does something similar to this as well, like the city of Fort Wayne. They reach out to their other departments and they get a pre-draft of what their needs are, what their expenditures are, what their expenditures are on the prior year. And that is then given to their finance committee for them to review, to get an idea. And then if there's something that you, can somebody tell me what that backfeed is?
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Seems like everyone's muted except us three.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's just my tablet or the background noise at my house. So I think, Councilwoman Tillman, what you were asking for, you want a draft of what the departments submit to the mayor? Is that what you're asking for? Because in July, that is all we are going to have. Is
Yes,
just the draft of what they submit. And it may or may not look anything like the final version of the budget.
That we understand, but it will give us some guidance or some clarity on what the needs are. They know what the prior year expenses were to determine what their proposed budget for 2022 would be. So and if I'm not mistaken, or correct me if I'm wrong, but are you or have you not sent out anything to departments presently to let them know to start getting this prepared and to try to have this ready by July 6th?
We have always had the department's budgets before July 6th.
Okay.
But yes, I did send out some guidelines and we initiated the 2022 budgets in our financial system. We did that yesterday on April 19th.
And that's a good start.
Which is about 2 weeks earlier than what we normally send that out. We usually don't send that out till the 1st of May.
Okay. So that's a good start. That's a beginning. So yes, I would like to request that the finance committee receive the drafts of what the departments have prepared or what they will be, which will be reviewed by the mayor.
We can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. And yeah, so basically, we need to get the process started sooner. Is what it all boils down to. We always have to have a special meeting, like in between our meetings, just to keep up, because we're always told that we don't have time to take any longer to review the information. And this is just to make sure that we're not under that pressure. We want to make sure that we have our chance to do our due diligence and look at what we're approving thoroughly. I mean, I don't see what's unreasonable about that. These things, the budget comes around every year, and I just don't understand the logic behind waiting until the last minute to start putting it together. And I get that some information will still be coming in, but I don't know that everything has to be based off certain information being available before other information can be available.
Right, I just need you all to understand that you will not be receiving the actual budget. You will only be getting the worksheets that the department head fills out. You will not be receiving the actual budget until probably at the earliest, September 1st.
I said I don't understand why that has to be. That it takes
the budget
a month for all those to come in.
The budget needs to be balanced before we submit that to the council. And that cannot be done until all of the information on the revenues have been collected. So like I said, if I can give you the worksheets that the department heads submit to the mayor, but that may or may not look anything like what is actually in the actual budget that is given to the council.
Okay,
That
so
we'll send on first reading through the second meeting of September. The public hearing will be the first meeting in October, and the adoption will be the second meeting in October.
But you're assuming that this ordinance won't pass and we're still gonna be following the same schedule. And I'm not sure if that's gonna be the
Well,
case.
that's the schedule that the county follows. Every
But we're not the county.
working class city in the state follows that schedule.
I mean, but there's nothing that says we have to follow that schedule.
Well, no, but if the information's not available to give you an accurate budget, which is what we won't be able to do until we receive all of the information. And if the state is on time, we get the last of our information the middle of August.
Okay, so if the process begins prior to the middle of August and we start getting some information in the form of workbooks or looking at what the mayor's already approved, because like I said, every department isn't the same size, their budgets aren't the same, what they need to go over. A lot of them, just from the couple years that I've been doing this, they didn't change much from the last 3 years. So we can look at those and say, okay, this is what their operational budgets will likely be, and this is what we're looking to have approved. And then some of the more complicated things that have to be addressed as far as monies that are coming in, as far as revenues or whatever. I understand that some of those things may be a time matter, but the rest of it isn't. And there's no need to wait till the last minute to do it all. You guys give us this large budget, $53 million, and want us to review it in a matter of weeks. And then it's based off the schedule that the finance committee chair set when we will have open workshops to discuss all these things. And then there's always questions that come up at these workshops. And then we have more time in between the time the questions are asked. And then we have to, and we get an answer for those questions. So if we start getting these things in the process and these questions asked ahead of time, by the time you do get everything that you need in, a lot of these questions will already be answered, and we won't have to spend that time on those items, and we could work through the more difficult things with enough time to meet all the deadlines.
A question.
Councilwoman Deitch.
So is the language, because I don't have it in front of me right now, I'm sorry that I'm late, but does it say that the budget has to be presented to the council by a certain date, or does it say that that we begin the deliberations before a certain date?
The way it's written now, it says this is deadline for submitting proposed budget and tax levies. Subsection A. The mayor of Michigan City and his administration shall complete the preparation of the city's annual proposed budgets and tax levies so they are able to be provided to the Common Council for its review and approval on or before July 6th of each year. So if that needs to be worded to say drafts of the budget or certain portions, then maybe we can do that. But I still think
I was thinking
time frame.
I was thinking something more along that, because there's really no consequence if they don't have the information. There's not a consequence that can be made from, if they don't make that date and they don't have the information, then all of a sudden so my question is there something else? Is there another reasonable date? Controller, House Master, you've been around, you've done this 20 plus years. And what's the earliest you have seen that you've been able to prepare it? Is it August 15th? Is that August 1st? And I know in recent years it's been later, but I'm just curious, is there a timeline for beginning the process, and then what's the earliest that a proposed budget has been submitted? to the council?
Yeah, I believe the earliest that we were ever able to present a budget to the council was like the 25th of August. It was around that last week of August was the earliest that the budget was completely finished and presented to the council.
I think I was on the council.
But like, our process to prepare this budget, other than sending out to get the worksheets from the departments, is the very first thing we need to do to start the actual preparation of the budget is reconcile June 30. And we require, on a best month, 15 days to reconcile a month. So that's our first step in actually preparing the budget, because we need reconciled June 30 numbers to start all of the forms that the state requires for the budgets. But like I said, I would be more than willing to share the worksheets that the departments submit to the mayor, because that's where we start on the expenses after we have been through all the revenues to see what dollars we do have available to fund all of these budgets.
Okay, I have one other question. So June 30, so we talked 15 days, so business days, it could be July 20th or so. So do you give the departments a deadline after that on how long they have to turn in those forms?
Well, the forms are due on June 4th.
Okay, I got you now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we have those. It's not just looking at what the departments send. We have to go through a whole reconciliation process, and then we go through estimating all of the revenues, and then we look at the expenses.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman Deitch. You said, so you're still going to be doing this based off estimates. You won't have an exact number no matter which way you do it, correct?
Until we get all of the revenues, that is correct.
So when all of the revenues are, so you're looking at the revenues that we are collecting in 2021 to go toward 2022's budget?
Well,
Or
we're
looking
waiting.
at what funds are available?
Yeah, we wait on the estimates from the state. That's where a lot of our largest revenues come from tax collections, whether it's the local income tax, the property tax, some of the miscellaneous revenues we receive from the state. So we have to wait for them to release those numbers to us.
Okay.
Also,
okay.
they release the actual, the maximum levy that we get. The state releases that number to us also. We don't get to determine what our tax levy is. The state tells us what that is, and then they give us an estimate on the circuit breaker, which you subtract directly from the tax levy.
So I have one other question. How many, so after that date from receiving that information, how long does it typically take to prepare after getting the information from the state?
About 2 weeks. So we get the last of our information around the middle of August from the state. And it usually takes us about 2 weeks to get everything put together, go over all of the numbers, make sure all of the funds are balanced, and that the revenues that we're estimating are able to cover the expenses that have been submitted.
Okay, so let me ask this question. In the past, Councilwoman Tillman.
So the worksheets that's given to the departments, so you're saying that those are going to be due by June 4th, which is really just an estimate, a draft. Those forms is what I would like to see, with the understanding that it's not the final budget, because you still got to go through the reconciliations and seeing what's going to get paid. But looking back, which is okay, but looking back on saying we have to wait until end of August, because that's when we will have everything. But in the midst of the budget the budget hearings last year, there was 4 forms of the worksheet because there was bills that was still coming in that had to get paid. So there were still adjustments having to be made. So we will anticipate probably that occurring again.
Okay, I don't think I quite understood what you said.
I don't recall that.
Yeah, I was just wondering though, but so that even with that, that's only the expenses that the budgets are presenting, and that's so early, and that's not even with the mayor making suggested yes or no or any of that. That's just you just want the plain raw data sheets. Is that what we're saying? Because it's just the expense of it. I guess I'm.
Starters, yes.
Oh, okay.
And one other question that I had. So with your experience, Controller Hoffmaster, in the last 5 to 10 years, how much has these revenues changed or fluctuated from year to year? Can you say that one year, with just using easy numbers, saying 1 year we got $1 million, 1 year we got $80, 1 year we got $10 million. Has there been some fluctuations that were that extreme, or has it been some reasonable range where you can average, say, okay, if we do a conservative estimate, we get around X amount of dollars, and let's base it off that, and then whatever X amount else comes in, then we can make adjustments at that time before final approval. Is there a drastic change in the revenue amounts annually?
Yes and no. I do normally start out by doing very conservative estimates on all the revenue. And then when all the numbers come in, I just go in and change all of the forms with the actual numbers. And we typically go back and forth quite a bit. You know, my staff and I, when after the mayor has met with all the department heads and we have what he wants in the budget, we'll go back and forth between all of the numbers and then typically let the mayor know that, yes, we can meet all of these, or sometimes we have to tell them that we need to cut a certain budget by X number of dollars because we're not able to fund it. But yeah, we usually start out with some pretty conservative numbers on the revenue. And like I said, and then just adjust them after the actuals come from the state. And that's why at the last minute, we're changing up all of the forms with the actual numbers.
So what we're requesting with this ordinance is to get what you will have or what you can put together based off those estimates and those conservative guesses to us so we can begin the review process. Even if you give it to us in an order that makes it easier as the rest of these numbers are coming in. So there's not an exorbitant amount of additional data you have to plug in later. What's the problem with that process? I mean, I understand this is something that you're not used to, and it's change, and nobody likes change. But you know, if we do this year, and then we know going into next year that this is going to be the new normal, I don't see where the real pain of adjustment is going to be an issue going forward.
Right, I have no issue with change because, you know, I'm the first one to say change keeps everybody on their toes. But I'm still saying that the only thing that we are going to have on or before July 6th will be the estimate submitted to the mayor from the departments.
Okay.
Because we have not reconciled June 30th by July 6th. We don't even have all of June's information on July 6th.
Okay, would you have May's information?
Mm-hmm. Right, but May's numbers I can't use when I'm preparing the budget. That would mean I'm doing the whole process twice.
Okay, Councilman Dabney.
I'm listening and I know we're trying to get this thing earlier. People can take their time to look at this, but we're ready to put out some inaccurate budgets. And this is going to be a total mess. if we jump the gun and not wait for them to have accurate information for the sake of being quick and speedy, we're going to sacrifice accuracy. And the last thing you want to be inaccurate about is the city budget. I heard Sean say, you know, we can try it and see what happens down the line, but one big miss. And if we end up having to go back and ask the state, because we missed by a lot, I've seen this happen in different budgets before, even with school systems, we have to come back and ask for additional appropriations from the state. They're not gonna like that. Well,
We're not looking for speed. We're looking for
speed.
enough time to do our due diligence. There was never a mention of speed. We would like the process to begin sooner is what the problem is.
Okay, and last time, what did we have, about 10 days to review the budget? Last year?
10 days to review a $50 million budget, exactly.
And but we only go through the city departments and a couple of other, you don't look at that whole book that's there.
Exactly, we don't have time to.
I actually added a couple of accounts with the revenue side that we did last year, which we never looked at before until last year because I added the revenues.
Yeah, I know, because I mentioned that we weren't looking at it prior to us scheduling the meetings, and that's why you scheduled those.
No, that's not what because I wanted to do that.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going with that. That's the truth. And
We'll go with that.
yeah, we'll go with that. And you know, sometimes when you're sitting in a seat like this, you know, you may have to stay up to midnight. You may have to do weekends. You may have to put that effort in to put time in to make sure this is right. But to start off with information that's inaccurate is going to be done once, and it's going to have to be redone again. And you know, I'm not on the finance committee this year, and hopefully it works out because this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Dutch and Councilman President, we got to try to wrap it up.
Yeah, okay. I'll be really quick. I think this is a little early, so I would like to see it out a little bit further, just in the wording to be changed to say something about the sheets, not necessarily the but when it says proposed budget, it's very technical, and I feel like we're supposed to have the entire book. But I would like to have those sheets prior to the meetings with the departments, and even if it's a August 1st date, but I would like the reconciliation of the June 30th information. I think that's fair. So, I mean, I think if we could consider something like that and pushing it out, I would be in favor of that. I just, as far as reconciliation and accounting and all that, that's a little bit on a different side of the fence in numbers for me, but I do understand that we probably need that additional time, and then to get those forms prior to setting up those meetings. I think all those meetings need to be had and completed by mid-August. I mean, I think all that should happen. So that's just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman President.
I'll save my comment for the meeting, for the regular
Okay.
meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Were there any other questions?
Nope.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.